Welcome friends to another tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to be converting this Unity Assets car from the standard assets over to a VR car so we can utilize it as a base for drivable vehicles in VR. In this one I'm going to add some pop-up text so it gives the user some directions on how to get in the car. So once you're in the car, I mean it's going to drive like a normal race car, I guess you'd say. You got hand braking, you can do burnouts, you can go in reverse, leave smoke trails, just like it's going to keep all the stuff the Unity Assets car had, except we're going to be driving in VR. It could be a little bit of a long tutorial, so let's jump right in. Alright, so you're going to need a couple of things to start out. I've already got a new project started, and I've already got BNG's VRIF framework, virtual VR VR interaction framework already imported into the project. And I'm in the XR demo scene, and the first thing you're going to need is you're going to need the Unity standard assets. I've already imported it, but it gets an error when you import it, so I'm going to go ahead and show you. This is what you need. I'll leave links to everything in the description, along with the scripts to be downloaded so you don't have to type everything to get this thing going. But once you import it, you're going to get an error. It's right here. It's a GUI text error. So just double click on it. Bring it up in Visual Studio. And you'll see right here it's got GUI text. That's outdated. So just delete the GUI, change it to text, and come up to the top, copy this, paste it, and put .ui. So it's new using Unity's new UI system. That'll get rid of the error. Moving on. Let's go ahead and close that. And the next thing you're going to need is a car. We're going to use a free Lamborghini off of the Unity Assets store. I've also already downloaded that. Show you what that looks like. It's this one. Looks like this. I think I've already imported it. Yeah, I've already imported it. So go ahead and import that. Get that into your project. And then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our car. So go into your Unity standard assets. Go into vehicles. Go into car. Go into prefabs. And you need the regular car. Go ahead and pull it in the scene. And then go back to your assets. Go back to your Lamborghini import. Go to the prefabs folder and pick a color. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I guess I'll do a blue one this time, maybe. Oops. Just take it and drop it in there on top of the car. That way it's right on top of it. But we don't want it to be a child yet, so once you do that, pull it out. That just kind of gets it in the same spot. So we're going to spend most of our time in this tutorial. Well, you'll spend most of your time getting this thing lined up. And the idea here is to get your wheels as close to center. So as you can see right now, the Unity Assets cars is too big. So go ahead and click on your Assets car, and we're going to size it down a little bit. Oops. And you're just going to try to get it. Get the wheels centered as best you can. And just kind of keep checking it back and forth. A little bit bigger. That's probably close enough for me for the tutorial. Just so we're not taking up a whole bunch of time, just set up the car. So I'm just going to kind of rough it in. And to get it back to center, just go over to your car here and copy your X. Go back to your Lamborghini car here and paste it, and that'll center it back up on the X-axis. And once you're happy with all that, go into your Lamborghini here and go down to the wheels. Now the trick here is we want the wheel to turn, but we don't want the brake to turn. So if we just take this whole wheel and we move it to where we need it, we're going to have a brake spinning. The brake is number 5. So we're going to copy this whole wheel. Come down to our Sky car. And there's 4 wheels here. So I got back left. So I need rear left. Don't paste these as children. Just paste them and then drag them in to be children of their car, or of the Sky car's wheel. Every time I've pasted it as a child, it's done something weird to the positioning, and it messes stuff up. So just do it that way. And back right, copy the whole wheel, so on. Front left. And front right. Okay, so up here we want to keep the brake. We want to get rid of everything else. Notice they're out of order. Number 5 is the brake. So skip over it and just disable them. You can delete them if you want. I don't delete things until I get done with everything. That way I don't accidentally delete something. And then these are actually in order. Okay. Let's come down to the car down here. And we want everything but the brake. So go to 5 and just disable it. Okay, next thing we want to do is down here in our Sky car, click on your front wheel. Now we want to center this thing up to the wheels on the Sky car. And like I said, your positioning is going to be better than mine. You're going to take more time than me to do this. But we want to center it on the Y and the Z. You don't want to do the X, because if you do the X, it's going to pull your wheels out real far and it's going to look weird. So just go to each wheel and just zero these out. You'll see how it brings it to center of the Unity Assets car wheel. Okay. So that's enough on the wheels. Wheels are centered up. We're good there. Go and close those up. Get them out of our way. See what we're doing. Okay, next thing we can do is we can go through here and we get rid of all these Sky car meshes. Because we don't need to see the Sky car anymore. Just go down through each one. Get rid of the meshes. Until we're left with just the Lamborghini. Alignment wasn't too bad. We can deal with that. Okay, so now go up to your colliders. You can see how it's kind of surrounding everything. We want to edit these colliders, so open it up. And you can go through them, and you're probably going to redo the colliders anyway. I'm not going to spend any time doing that in this tutorial. For right now, for the sake of this, I'm just going to pull them out of my way. You don't want to teleport your player to the inside of a collider. Go to your bottom. This one's kind of the important one. Just want to kind of pull it down to where it's just kind of a platform for the bottom of the car. That'll work. And we'll pull this out. for now. Okay. Go ahead and close that up. And now we need a steering wheel. So let's go to our assets, go to BNG framework, go to prefabs. And there's two steering wheels. You want this one. Just straight steering wheel. This one says lever setup. You want this one. Take it and drag it on top of your Sky car. And you want it to be a child with a Sky car. I figured this one out. I was having trouble with every time I would grab the wheel, this car would slow down into a stop if you let go and grabbed a hold of it. I figured out that if it was a child of the Sky car, it didn't do that. Very strange. But anyway. I'm just going to line this wheel up as best we can. You can spend more time with this. You can increase the size of the graphics to match or whatnot to get this about where you need it to be. And once you get it roughed in, come around to the side and tilt this steering wheel like that. Makes it a little more comfortable to drive in VR. Plus, I'm not sure if it would mess with the wheel rotation. Just bring it into it. That works for now. Okay. So now once you've done that, go find your steering wheel up here. Where's that? They called it roll for some reason. And we're going to make it a child of, oops. Go ahead and open your prefabs. Don't open your prefabs, but unpack both prefabs for the Lamborghini and the Sky car. Okay, so now go up to roll. Open up your steering wheel. Let's see here. It needs to be a child of the rotor. So take roll and just drop it on rotor. All right. Now we've got our steering wheel, we've got our wheels lined up, we've got our Lamborghini. Now we need a couple of things. We're going to have to set up this car for entry. So go ahead and click on the Lamborghini. We're going to go ahead and make it a child of the car. And on the Lamborghini, go down to the collider and just disable it. We don't need it. Okay. So now we can click on the car and we're going to add an empty. And we're going to call this, just going to stick with what we got over here. We're going to call this Lambo seat destination. Okay, now this is going to be where we teleport our player. So come in here and just try to get it roughed in to about the center of the driver's seat, about where you think your player would be sitting. We'll come back and line this up after we start getting in and out of the car. Just rough it in. Okay. Once we've got that, just go ahead and duplicate it. And we're going to call this one a Lambo exit destination. I know I'm an original. And just go ahead and drag that out. This is where we're going to teleport our player when he gets out of the car. Okay, and then we're going to create a cube. Yeah, we'll create it right here. We're going to call this cube Enter Cube. I don't want it to be a child Lambo seat, so just drag it up. Okay. And we're just going to pull that out next to the car. All right, so now we're going to set up our GUI text that that the player will see when they come up to the car. So if you go down to the prefabs, there's a UI canvas in the BNG framework, so just drag that up. And down here, we're going to make one more empty. We're going to call this enter text. And again, I don't want this to be a child, so just drag it up. And then, let's see, pull this over. We're going to use this as a parent for our GUI here. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just like having an empty on these things for some reason. Okay, so click on the UI canvas. We're going to rotate it around so that we can read it. Okay, so once we got it flipped around, go ahead and unpack it, prefab, unpack, then drag it down and make it a child of the inner text. Okay, now this is a Unity UI text. I don't really use that. I use TextMesh Pro. So if you're using TextMesh Pro, which I recommend, has better text. It just looks better. Let's go ahead and delete that text, and then we're going to add a new text item. Go down to UI, TextMesh Pro. If that pops up, just go ahead and import it. Okay, and then our text, we're going to put press X to enter. Our text, we can hit T, and that'll allow you to stretch it out. And then come back up to your canvas, and you can kind of shrink it down. You can play with the font size and whatever, and put whatever text you want on this. And then we're just going to click on this inner text, and then we're going to move it up to where, you know, they can see it. Next to the car. That works for now. That's good enough for this. And you can play with that some more later. And then what we're going to do on the UI canvas, just go ahead and disable it so we can't see it. Now it's time for some scripts. So head back over to your assets, create a new folder, and call this car scripts, just so you know what it is. Then we're going to create a new C# script. We're going to call this car, well, we'll call this one my car controller. And before we get into this, I want to show you something, just so you understand what's going on. If you go up to car, you'll see there's two controller scripts here. There's one that's actually doing the controlling of the car controller itself, and then there's a car user control. We're gonna manipulate this one. We're gonna change some stuff in this, and we're gonna write a new script to control this script that is controlling this script. So we're writing a new control script to control a user control to control the car controller. Hopefully that makes sense. So just right click car user controller and click edit. Okay, so right off the bat you can see that they're getting their controls off of the horizontal and vertical. which is your W and your S key, and the space bar. And they're passing those floats to their other car controller script. So what we need to do is we need to interface with this with our controllers and a B&G steering wheel. And the way we're going to do that, you'll see this has a namespace, Unity Standard Assets.Vehicles.car. I can't use using B&G in here. I've tried moving this around, changing the namespace. It will not accept B&G's namespace at all. So the workaround was I'm just going to control this with another script. So we're going to add some floats to this. So come up to the top. And we're going to have steer car, acceleration, and a handbrake float. And for our float H, we're going to get rid of this. Oops. We're going to get rid of this. And we're going to make this equal steer car. Our next one is going to be acceleration. And this one is going to be, you guessed it, handbrake float. Okay. That's all we really need in here. Now we're going to go back into Unity and open up the script that we just made. And the first thing you're going to need is you're going to need this namespace. So we're going to copy this, and this will label, once we add this namespace over here, we'll now have access to this script. So we can manipulate this script from this script. And then under this, we're going to use using B&G. And the reason we're using B&G in here is I'm going to use the input system, B&G's input system, the VRIF framework input system for our controls. Let me throw this on here. Okay, so at the top we've got a bool in the car. This is a bool we're going to set to tell the script if we're in the car or not. We've got 3 floats: steer car float, acceleration float, and handle brake float. And then we've got the car user controller, car controller. We're actually going to put this on the object that has the car controller. So we could have just as easily not used this, but just out of habit that I've gotten into, I'm going to go ahead and assign it. So at the very beginning, I'm gonna assign to get the component the car user controller. So car controller equals get component car user controller, which is this. So on start, it's going to get that for us. And down in the update function, it's going to call if in the car is true, which is our bool. Then our acceleration float is going to equal our right trigger plus negative our left trigger. And what that means is our car user controller script is expecting a +1 for forward and a -1 for reverse. But your triggers on your controllers are both going to give +1 when you pull them in. So when we add the two together, if I make my left trigger negative, that gives it the -1 that it's expecting in the script. If you pull them both at the same time, it's going to say 0. If you pull your right, it's +1. Pull your left, -1. And then we need a float for our handle brake, but we want to assign it to a button. So if our A button is pushed in, our handle brake float is going to equal 1, else it's going to be equal to 0. This is just to turn a true false, a boolean, into a float. And then we're going to pass those values, our float values, over to our car controller, our car user control script. So our floats that we have here, we're going to assign those float values to these. And then from there, it'll assign it to these, which will go into the next controller script. And down here, if in the car is false, so else, it's just going to send zeros for all these floats. So the car, if you jump out of it, it'll just come to a rolling stop eventually. This method down here is what we're going to use for our steering wheel. And we're going to pass a float on value change from our steering wheel. And we're going to say our steer car float is equal to negative on value change. And the reason it's negative is because the script is expecting the opposite values that the that the steering wheel is putting out. So I just made it negative as a quick fix. It fixed the problem instead of trying to hunt it down in the script, you know. Okay, so save that up. Go back into Unity. And take that and throw it on your car. And click on car, scroll down to the bottom. Oh, I guess I did redo that the way I said I did. Never mind, you're not going to have to assign it. I actually made it that way. Moving on. Go ahead and create a new script. We're going to call this CarEnter. As you guys can tell, I'm unscripted. I just do these in one shot. I don't edit them at all. So if I mess something up, you're going to know about it. Okay. So for CarEnter, we're going to need using BNG at the top. And this is going to be the script that gets us into the car. And it's kind of long, but it'll make sense. So first thing we need some game objects. You're going to need your player controller, your vehicle, your car destination, your right-hand model, and your left-hand model. That'll make more sense in a second. And your inner text object, which is the UI that we created that says to enter car, press X. We need a quaternion seat rotation and a vector 3 seat position. This is where we're going to store the values for transporting our player into the car. And then we need a float value for player height. This is made public so that you can manipulate it for whatever your scale is, or if you need to get to it from another script. And then we need a bool playerIsInTheCube, and that's what we're going to use for our trigger. And down here at the bottom, when they enter that cube on the outside of the car, if their tag is equal to player, which by default in BNG your controller is tagged as player. When they enter the cube, it's going to know, and it's going to set our bool to true, and then that inner text is going to set it active so that they can see enter the car. When they go out of the cube, it's going to set the text to false. That way it disappears back and forth. Now, if they enter the cube, it's going to set in the cube to true. And now if in the cube equals true, or equals true, and they click their X button, it's going to get the seat rotation and the position of the car destination, and then it's going to teleport our player to those positions. So it's going to take us and it's going to teleport us to the front seat facing the right direction. It's then going to set our player height down to what we set up here in this float. And then we're just going to disable a bunch of stuff on the character controller, because you don't want them doing certain things when they're in the car, like moving around, and you know, you wouldn't walk through the console and stuff like that, or just walk out of the car. Then we're going to disable our hand collision on our hand models. So in BNG, when you make a fist or if you point your finger, you'll collide off of stuff. And if you're in the car, it'll collide off the steering wheel and things like that and cause the car to bounce all over the place. So to fix it, we're just going to disable it. And then we're going to transform our parent to be our vehicle. And that way, when you take off driving, you go with the vehicle. If you don't do this, it would just leave you sitting in the middle of the road. And then we're going to set a bool in our car exit script. The reason this is red is because we haven't made that script yet, but we're just going to set that bool in that other script to true. And then we're going to set a bool in my car controller, which is right here, to true. And that's what's going to allow us to operate the car. So if it's set to false, the car won't move with our control. So if you're out of the car, you can't control the car. And it's going to set playerIsInTheCube to false. Inner text set active false. And the game object set active false. So it's going to disable this whole thing. So it's just going to reset our bool and all that stuff. I might come back to that. I didn't realize that. I got that in kind of a funky order. We'll come back to that. It shouldn't make any much of a difference, but we'll find out. And anyway, moving on. Go back into Unity. Create a new script. We're going to call this car exit. Up at the top, I need using BNG. Okay, at the top, we just need a bunch of game objects again. We need our XRRig, the player controller, the vehicle, the exit destination, the inner cube, the tracking space, our right-hand model again, our left-hand model, a quaternion initial rotation, and a vector 3 initial position. We need our public float for our player height exit. So this is how we're going to set our player height back to what it was before we got in the car. And then we have a bool in the car equals false. And in the start, what we're going to do is we're going to store our tracking space's rotation and position of what it was before we got in the car. And that way, if we go into a tailspin or we're flipped upside down or something like that and we get out of the car, this will reset our rotation and position so that we're upright. Without this, if you go into a spin and you get out of the car, you might be on your side or you might be on your head and you can't reset it. So this is what does that. And down here in the update function, we're going to call if the player controller falls 75 cubes below 0, so is less than negative 75 float, so below 0, and in the car is true. It's going to throw you out of the car. So if you drive off the edge of the earth or go out of bounds, it's going to eject you from the car, and then another script will take care of transporting you back to your initial position. Or if in the car is true and you click your B button down, it's going to get you out of the car to your exit destination. That's how you get in and out of the car. So if you click your B button or this happens, it's going to teleport us out of the car to our exit destination. It's going to re-enable gravity. It's going to transform our parent back to the XRRig, and then it's going to re-enable all the stuff that we disabled off the character controller in our other script. And then we're going to re-enable our hand collision so we can punch things again. And then we're going to reset our tracking space, the initial rotation and position, so that we're upright again. And then we're going to set this bool in the car in my car controller to false, which is our my car controller, which lets us control the car. And it's going to set in the car to false up here. And then it's going to enable our inner cube again. And the reason we're disabling our inner cube is that if you find yourself in a multiplayer situation and you've got these cars and you get in a car and then another guy comes up next to you, you'd be able to jump in your car. So you got to disable the cube. So we disabled it here and then we re-enabled it here. So save that up, go back into Unity. Okay. Just bear with me a second. Okay. So take your car exit and put it on your seat destination. And take your CarEnter and put it on your exit destination. Okay. So we're going to have to fill some stuff out here. We need our XRRig on your Lambo seat destination. It's our car exit script. You need your XRRig. You need your player controller. You need your vehicle, which is going to be the car, the very top parent. You're going to need your exit destination. Then you're going to need your inner cube. You're going to need your tracking space, which is right here. It's underneath CarEnter. You're going to need your right-hand model and your left-hand model. And this is the actual model of the hand that you're using. You have several in the advanced XRRig, but it's the actual hand that you've got selected. Okay. Go to our exit destination for our CarEnter. Put that on the wrong one. Go ahead and get rid of that. Go down to your inner cube. And we're going to put our CarEnter on our inner cube. Sorry about that. Okay, now we're going to populate some stuff. First thing you need to do is your box collider on your inner cube. Check is trigger because it's going to be a trigger. And then take your player controller and your vehicle again. And your car destination, which is seat destination. And then you need your right-hand model and your left-hand model again. And then you need your inner text, which is that text UI that we created. Okay. Well, that might have been record time for setting that up. I feel like I'm missing something, but let's go ahead and try it anyway. Let's jump into VR real quick and see what happens. Yeah, it's giving me an error. Hold on. Yeah. So if you go up to your steering wheel, I keep forgetting about this, but if you go to your grabbable collider, the mesh collider for some reason convex is not checked. So go ahead and check that. Sorry about that. I had to fix something real quick with my... had to reset my Quest. Anyway. Alright. Our text is working. Coming in and out of it. Cube disappears, disables, text disappears, we're good there. And we can drive. Oh, that would be what I forgot to do. Wheels are turning. Alright, I forgot to set up our steering wheel. So if you go to the steering wheel, come down to the bottom, there's an on value change. And we need to go here and add one. And then we're going to give it our car, which is where we put my car controller. And then we're going to grab my car controller, and you'll see there's a dynamic float, car steering. Now up here on rotation limits, this is how far your steering wheel will turn. Just start with -90 and 90. And then you can play with this to see how far you want your steering wheel to turn right and left to get to that -1 value. Alright, so now let's check it out. Text works. Looks like the rotation could be better, but you can play with that. Getting in the car just fine. We can look around and we can drive. Brakes work. Handbrake works. Alright, just kind of test it out. Whoa! Good times. Alright. Let's go ahead and go down to your InterCube and just disable the mesh. You don't need to see it anymore. And the only thing you got to do from here is go to your steering wheel, and we just want to get rid of the graphics. So the meshes, we don't want to delete them. We just want to get rid of the meshes so we can't see the VRIF steering wheel. And then from here, I'll show you, I'm going to jump back in VR and show you how to line up your character to the seat real quick. It was actually pretty good when I was in it, but for the sake of showing you how to do it. So let's jump back in VR. I have to move the cube a little bit closer to the car. So once you're in here, lift up your quest. Oh, back up. Make sure you're not in maximize. Like I said, I do these in one shot. I don't edit the videos, so make sure it's not maximized. Get in your car and kind of check it out and see about where you're at, and click over on your scene while you're still in VR, and then come down to your seat destination, and you can kind of move it back a little bit, and I'm actually centered up pretty good, and then you can just jump in and out of the car. So and then just kind of look and see about where you're at, and then once you're, might want to be a little bit lower. That actually looks pretty good. So once you're happy with it, I can stop hitting the trigger, putting down my controller. Once you're happy with the position of the empty, just go up and copy the component, and then when you stop it, right click and then just paste component values, and that'll put it to where you had it. And then from here, we're going to jump back in, and I'm actually, before I do that, this is kind of bothering me. So if we go down to our text, go ahead and enable it real quick so I can see it. Sorry about that. The only thing I hate about working in VR is all the cables. Go down to your UI text, and I'm just going to kick that in a notch so it's straight. And then on our InterCube, we want to move that in a little bit closer. That way the text doesn't disappear. That'll work. Save that up. And then we're going to jump back into VR and test out the car, drive it off the edge of the earth, and make sure everything's working. Oh, forgot to disable my text. Go to your UI text and just disable it again. Come up, X to enter. We're in there. So put us upright. There we are, back at our start position. And there you go. That's how you take over the standard Unity standard assets car and turn it into a VR car that you can drive and skin for your own use. In later tutorials, we'll get into adding some other stuff to this. You know, maybe a radio. I'm going to do one on a stereo, I think. But anyway, I hope you found this informative, and thanks for joining.